Welcome everybody. In this video, we are going to go over how can we add and subtract polynomials. Now for this, we need to remember a couple of concepts. First of all, we need to remember what like terms are. Like terms are the terms that you can add or subtract. They have the same variable and the same exponent. Since we are adding and subtracting, only like terms are going to be the terms that we will be able to add and subtract. So here we have our first example. Here, obviously, like always, we are going to start by trying to get rid of the parentheses. So if we look at the first set of parentheses, there's nothing in front of them. So these parentheses are only grouping, which tells me that in order for me to get rid of this parentheses, I don't have to do absolutely anything. So we are still going to have 4x to the second power minus 3x plus 8. Now, when we take a look at the second parenthesis right here, we have a negative in front of it. The most important thing is for us to remember that this happens to be a negative 1. There's an invisible 1 right there. And for this, we're going to have to remember the distributive property. What is the distributive property? That is when we have parentheses and we have a number in front of it. This number is going to multiply each one of the numbers inside of my parentheses. So in this case, this negative 1 is going to multiply the 3x squared, which is going to come out to negative 3x to the second power. And it's also going to multiply the negative 5. Negative and negative positive. 1 times 5, 5. Once that we get rid of our parentheses, now we have to start looking into like terms. What is it that we're going to be able to combine or add and subtract? So in this case, let's start with the highest exponent. So we're going to look for x squares. We have 4 here, and then we have negative 3 here. So that gives me 4x squared minus 3x, gives me x to the second power. Very good. Now, we're going to look at the regular x's. Negative 3, and that's the only thing that we have, which tells me that down here, I'm going to have negative 3x. And at last, we have the numbers. So remember, we always order the terms from the highest exponent to the lowest all the way to the numbers last. So here we have positive 8, positive 5. That's going to turn into a positive 13. At this point, we look at all of our terms, and look, we have terms that have the same variable, but they don't have the same exponent, so we cannot add them. And then this one, we can do anything because that's the only number that we have, which tells me that this is my final answer. So we're going to do a second example right here, number 2. We have 5p to the second power minus 3 plus 2p to the second power minus 3p to the third power. Okay, so we start from the same point. We need to get rid of parentheses. And again, to get rid of my first set of parentheses, there's nothing I have to do. So this is going to stay exactly the same. 5p to the second power minus 3. Do not forget there is a 1 here. And this is going to multiply each one of the numbers inside. So positive and positive, positive. 1 times 2, 2p to the second power. Then we do the second multiplication. Positive times a negative, negative. 1 times 3, 3. P to the third power. Okay, so at this point, there's no more parentheses. Now we're going to start adding and subtracting like terms. So let's start always with the one with the highest exponent. In this case, negative 3 to the third power. So this is going to be negative 3p to the third power. Now, we're going to move to the next one, which is p to the second power. Here we have this 2. So we have 5p to the second power plus 2 p to the second power, that's plus 7p to the second power. And at last, the numbers, which in this case, we only have a negative 3. So I'm just going to put negative 3 right here. Again, now, I look at my terms. There's nothing I can do as far as adding or subtracting. There's no more like terms. This is going to be my final answer. Very good. Now we're going to look at one last example, okay? In this example, we have basically the same idea. We have parentheses and all that. We're going to start, again, the same way, trying to get rid of the parentheses. Now, one thing that I'm going to notice at the very beginning, to try to get rid of this parentheses, now I have a number out here, which tells me that I'm going to have to use distributive property, meaning this number 2 multiplies everything inside of the parentheses. 2 times x, 2x. 2 times 3, 6. Very good. Now let's look at the second set of parentheses. And again, we have a number in front of it. So, again, we're going to multiply this number, that's negative 2. It's going to multiply first the negative 2x, so negative and positive negative. 2 times 2 equals 4, and then we have x. And then it's also going to multiply the positive 9. Positive and a negative, negative. 2 times 9, 18. Now that we don't have parentheses, we're just going to start combining like terms. So let's just start with the x's. So we have 2 minus 4. That's going to give me negative 2x. And then we're going to do the numbers. Positive 6, negative 18. That's going to give me negative 12. Now here, again, no more like terms. This is going to be my final answer.